Select Committee. My name is Carl Catchwell, Chair of the Committee. Before we continue, I'll go over some general housekeeping. Many in the Chamber have heard this all before. This meeting is being held in person at County Hall and is also being streamed live on the County Council's YouTube channel. The recording will also be available to view afterwards. Under the Council's protocol on the use of media equipment at meetings held in public, this meeting may be filmed, recorded or photographed. Anyone wishing to do so must inform me and ensure that it's done in a way that is clear, visible to everyone present. The wishes of an individual not to be recorded or filmed must be appropriately respected. A fire alarm test is not expected during the meeting. If the alarm does sound, we must evacuate County Hall. In the event of an emergency, please make your way to the nearest exit and meet at the muster point located in the main car park. As we are currently in a pre-election period, I also ask councillors to keep to the agenda and the important items that we need to debate. I apologise. I reserve my right to withdraw to debates to a close where councillors are straying from the matter in hand and into promotion of the political groups or parties. As this is the first meeting for many of us, I will also remind members that agenda time should be used for focus questions and not for speeches or debates. Turning now to the first agenda, I will ask Nikki to provide us with the details of any apologies and substitutions.
Thank you. Apologies today received from Callum Ringer, substituted by Jim Webber, and Matthew Taylor, substituted by Stuart Clancy.
Sorry. The next item on the agenda is to agree the minutes of the Infrastructure and Development Select Committee from the meeting held on the 12th of March 2026. Do members have any comments of accuracy would they like to raise?
No, so just ask them to agree.
So can the members please agree to the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March 2026? Show of hands. Thank you. Do members have any interest to declare? No. Point 4. I would like to use this time briefly to welcome new and returning members to this meeting of the Infrastructure and Development Select Committee. I look forward to working with you all. I would also like to thank the outgoing Chair and Vice Chair, Councillor Vic Thompson and Councillor Chris Dawson for their work and enthusiasm while they served on this committee. Moving on to point 5, we have received 2 substantive questions from members of the public. The questions and responses have been published on the Norfolk County Council website, and the copies have been distributed to committee members. The first question was from Suzanne Catamol. I don't know which one's which. Who should be present? Yes, she is. Would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Hi. Oh, sorry. The School Street scheme started 5 years ago. Since then, only one school, Robert Kerr, has managed to maintain a scheme based on volunteer enforcement, a model not used by any other road safety schemes. With so many other local authorities running successful school street schemes, what does this council hope to learn from a single scheme that it cannot learn from the experiences of other highway authorities across the country?
Thank you. Would anyone like to answer that on Ms. Catamol's return? Graham. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the supplementary question as well. As you've highlighted, we have been running a school streets trial for a number of years, and we did face a number of challenges with the trial sites that we had, and unfortunately, one by one, they all subsequently ceased. We did bring a report back to this committee early last year, just highlighting the challenges and difficulties that the trials have faced, and we are keeping a very close watching brief on developments elsewhere, because like you've highlighted, there are some areas where school streets have worked really well. So we are keen, and we're in contact with those authorities to learn more, so as we can then hopefully design a future scheme as long as there's funding available to implement. But yeah, I say it's an area that we're watching very closely, because we want the scheme to be a success. But unfortunately, so far it's been really challenging within Norfolk.
The second question we have is from Jenny Williams, also present. Would you like to ask your supplementary question?
Yes, thank you. So I appreciate that the police are stretched and cannot be in all areas of need across the county. That's why I'm curious why the council is not exploring other ways of enforcing safe driving, for example, through speed cameras, which can recoup the costs of installation through fines, or by removing traffic from school gates entirely, especially when this is, as you acknowledge, an issue for schools across the county.
I assume Graham would like to answer that question as well.
Yes, yeah. And again, thank you for the supplementary question. As you've highlighted, there are options around speed cameras, all of which come with costs and different amounts of support from the local community as well. So it remains an option, but at the moment we're focused on other measures in that vicinity, and you've highlighted some of those within the original question, and we're monitoring the situation to see how it's performing, and then we can then identify what other potential measures in the future might be feasible. But again, it comes down to cost of money and ultimately support. And as mentioned, cameras are quite controversial. There's some support for cameras. There's quite strong opposition to cameras as well.
Thank you, Graham. Moving on to point 6. We have received one member question. Substantive question has been answered, but the questionnaire has reserved the right to a supplementary question. Councillor Colwell, keeping in mind that you are also limited to 75 words, do you wish to ask your supplementary question now or defer?
I will ask it now, please. Given that you have mentioned potholes in your answer, can you explain why the answer from Cabinet 2 weeks ago to the question about potholes gave a different answer, saying there was no backlog?
Can I refer that to... Tom, sorry.
It's not. All right. Yeah, I don't know where that's come from. There's probably a 2-year backlog. There's an £80 million deficit in budgets. This is why we are diverting the money across to the pothole fund and road repair fund.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dickerson. Again, moving on to item 7. Strategic and financial planning. Councillor Thomas, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. So I'm introducing the strategic and financial planning item, this is for 2027 to 2028, which you can find on page 13 of your papers. So Cabinet recently considered the appended annual report that you can see that begins the budget process for the next financial year, which is 27 to 28. So due to the election, we are bringing the paper slightly later than we usually would, but nevertheless, the overarching objective for the Council remains to set a robust, balanced and deliverable budget. The appended report, which you can see, and that starts on page 20, does set out in detail the financial planning context for the Council, in particular the implications of the Fair Funding Review and the long-term settlement from government. I'm not obviously going to read the report, but I'll give you the key highlights. So the starting point for all the budget planning is the budget position and the medium-term financial strategy, which I'll go on to refer to as MTFS, which was approved by full council in February 2026, which is obviously before this administration started. That's detailed in section 2 of the appended report on page 24, and you'll note this includes a gap of £35.927 million for the year in question. So at that point, we had a further year to our financial planning, and Cabinet has therefore agreed the recommendation to extend the plan to 2030 31, adding a further gap of 42.954 million. You can see that on page 26. And I would say that extending the plan is a usual thing to do. It's not something that's out of the ordinary that's happening this year or any different to what's happened previously. So this results in a total gap for the MTFS period of £148,531. The 27-28 budget gap is based on a planning assumption of a 4.99% council tax increase in line with government assumptions, which you can see on page 28. At this stage, Cabinet has not been asked to decide the level of council tax, but the reality is that a council tax increase lower than 4.99%, will result in more departmental savings having to be found than those already included in the report. And as a ready reckoner, every 1% reduction in council tax equates to approximately £6 million in additional savings that need to be found. I would say, having been at the Cabinet meeting, the recent Cabinet meeting, we did reiterate, and I would reiterate again today, for the avoidance of doubt, no decision has been made on council tax increases. So understanding this is particularly important in the context of the Fair Funding Review and the long-term funding settlement. So this anticipates very limited increases in government funding for 27-28 and 28-29, which you can see in chart 1 of the appended report on page 23. Any increase in funding is mostly based on the government's assumed council tax increases. Tables 8 to 10 on your report at pages 35 and 34 allocate the savings gap across the departments, which is based on the methodology that's set out in paragraph 3.5. Cabinet have agreed the key assumptions, principles and approach to the budget setting for 27-28 as set out within that report, and they've also agreed the budget timetable set out in Table 7, which is important to note for the purpose of the recommendations. So an important feature of the budget setting process is the provision for public consultation on budget proposals, and this needs to take place between October and December 2026. This enables consultation feedback to inform the budget setting process in January 27, and Cabinet in October will consider and agree the proposals for consultation. The Select Committee may in particular wish to note that the timetable confirms the intention to engage with the Select Committees at 2 key stages within the budget process. So they are at a meeting of your committee in July to seek the committee's initial views on the budget process, and furthermore to provide an opportunity for the committee to input and shape the proposals being developed by all of the services, but particularly the ones that you're here to talk about today. Obviously, we've got different committees going through this process with every single committee at the moment. In November, the Select Committees will then have the opportunity to provide feedback and comments on the specific proposals, which will have been already then taken to public consultation, along with any other views on the emerging budget. In addition, the Strategic and Corporate Select Committee will consider the final budget in a scrutiny capacity between January Cabinet and February full Council on the 10th of February 2027. So, the recommendations for the Select Committee today are set out in the covering report, which you can see at pages 17 to 18, and in essence they ask the committee to understand the Council's overall budgetary position and the saving targets for the services within the committee's remit, to consider the financial position of the services and the overarching financial strategy in each area, and to provide the committee's views on budget strategy for the areas they're responsible for, including areas to explore for savings. I am joined by officers today to answer questions on the overall financial position of the Council, and if you want some more detail on the budget planning context. The Select Committee report refers members to the Council's 2026 to 27 budget book, which gives details of the financial strategy and key priorities in each service. This also provides detailed information about existing savings that have already been planned within each department, In addition, representatives from those services are available at the meeting to provide detail of the overall service strategy and priorities and how this links to the budget and any savings and transformation initiative. It also looks at the service's key areas of risk and initial thinking about the development of savings for the 2027-2028 budget, including opportunities to maximise efficiencies, deliver productivity improvements and increase revenue generation. So I would just like to say that yesterday, the budget book is a fascinating thing if members would like to read it. I know budgets are often seen as a bit boring, and I'm afraid I gave the budget book a bit of a bad press because I said it was bedtime reading. But I think, to clarify, it's probably more like a Haynes manual. So I would highly recommend, there's a link in the report, that people should have a look at that. Members should have a look at that. So we're very committed to protecting frontline services and delivering value for money, and this whole budget setting process, and these committees are very much part of that. If you've got any questions for me or the officers, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. That was very well presented. Well, the question was, you've already asked it. Does the committee have any questions they wish to ask? And I think Councillor Colwell, you were first.
Councillor Ludson.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Ludson.
Sorry, Councillor Ludson, sorry. You look very similar.
Hello. Perfect. Yeah, so my question is, given the HMB has 15 million of incentives for this year, and that much of our funding and infrastructure and development, as you correctly identified, is from central government, and it's based on incentives, can Cabinet please consider those elements when they are recommending any cuts in this area? Because they will have significant impact on the long-term outcomes.
Could you repeat the first part? Did you say HGV?
HMB, highways.
Oh, wait, sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
The main money we get from central government, yeah. So our capability rating from the Active Travel Fund, for example, is a level 2 out of 4. So it's good, but there's clear room for improvement. And our rating that we got in January 2026 was an amber rating, which I believe is tied to the HMB incentive funding. And again, it was in the middle. So there is room for improvement. We did a good job, but there's room for improvement. And there is potentially significant impact if we miss these funding opportunities. And I'm just concerned, in the light of the cuts that are coming, that we give due consideration to this, because this will have huge impact on the long-term outcomes for the residents of Norfolk.
May I respond?
Yeah, please answer. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. I think the point to make is highways is one of the council's highest priorities. Obviously, it's a huge big-ticket item. But today's report that I'm presenting isn't actually about making those spending decisions. So it's beginning the process which allows members, officers and the public to help shape proposals before any decisions are actually taken. And obviously, these committees are an intrinsic part of that. And your questioning of the services who are here today can help inform that. In terms of funding, I'll ask one of the officers to come in a moment, if I may, and provide maybe a more technical response to your question. But ultimately, we've got to plan prudently using the best information that we have got available at the time. And the report does reflect, I believe, the uncertainty around the fair funding review, but we've got to plan responsibly regardless of the outcome. But if I may, perhaps Mr. Bygraves, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for the question. In terms of those funds, really mindful of the new rules that the Department for Transport have brought in, and the new performance regime, which is also coming in this year from government. So that's all around the local transport outcomes framework, of which there's 21 performance indicators that we need to report back to government on how we're performing within the highways and transport world. You mentioned two funds there, the Highways Maintenance Fund and the Active Travel Fund. So with both of those areas, and we are expecting more rankings to come out in the future once all authorities submit this information. But yeah, we're really mindful of the Highways Maintenance Fund and trying to improve our amber rating to ideally a green rating. And then with the Active Travel, again, the measures and schemes that we've implemented are all designed to hopefully get us from that sort of level 2 ranking, which I think many authorities are at, to either level 3 or level 4, because with that comes additional funding. The other key bit to highlight is the paper in front of you is all around revenue savings for the authority. So, like was highlighted, Table 8, the revenue saving target for infrastructure is the £10.8 million figure on page 34 of your agenda pack. The Highways Maintenance Fund and Active Travel Fund, they're all capital funds in terms of the schemes. So yes, there is a revenue implication, but because they're capital funds, it's mainly, but the rankings will be based on what we're delivering on the ground from the capital programme rather than the revenue side. Hope that makes sense.
Councillor Kemp, I think you had a question as well.
Yes, my question is relating to the value for money element and the level of savings. I listened to the Cabinet report last week, so I'm aware that £2.3 million is being cut from the highways budget, £3.3 million from the fire budget because of the overspend on Norwich Castle Museum renovations of £6.5 million, and that's quite a concern because we've got a lot of smaller projects that need to be delivered in various divisions, not least in Kingsland, like the ferry, which need a small amount of money, and yet we're having multi-million pound cuts to vital services because of an overspend of a very large project in Norwich. Can you please describe how the steps are being taken to take control of large budgets to make sure they don't overrun, and the impact of the extra £6.5 million being spent on Norwich Castle Museum on various areas like the budget for highway maintenance and so on, please?
Would someone like to respond to that? Councillor Thomas.
Well, I'll start if that's okay. Thank you for the question, Councillor Kemp. And I think your comments about frontline services will be echoed, and those concerns will be echoed by residents of Norfolk and also members of all parties in the chamber. So obviously, as a council, our administration has to be, and the priority has to be, to protect frontline services wherever possible, but that's really why we're looking at things like efficiencies, productivities, and better ways of delivering services through transformation across the council services before considering residents, before considering reductions that would severely impact residents and those frontline services. But if I may, I'll ask one of the finance officers to give you a more technical response, because you've raised some specific projects there and some specific lines. Thank you. Harvey Bullen.
Thank you for the question. As set out in the Cabinet report, there's been no deletion of other projects. What has actually happened is the funding has been moved to reprioritise how that is used. The Cabinet report did set out there has been an increased cost in the Castle Museum project. That needs to be funded, and the Cabinet report sets out how that will be funded, but there's been no reduction or deletion of other schemes, because some of the funding, as I've just previously set out, has been reprioritised and directed to where it needs to go to. In terms of your broader question, clearly it would be ideal if all capital schemes were delivered within budget and there were no overspends, but in reality sometimes things do go adrift and the council needs to adjust projects as necessary. Clearly, where things do not go right, we look to understand the reasons why, and then improve our processes accordingly, so that in future that we can try and minimise any project overspend. But unfortunately, sometimes things happen that are outside of the council's control, which does increase costs of various projects, and we have to work around that, and that's what we do. Thank you.
Is there any other questions that any members would like to ask? Councillor Colwell.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, having seen this element of the financial year a few times, having been a previous councillor, it's always depressing when you get to this point because you're working out there's not enough money in the pot, there's got to be cuts from somewhere, and this is quite high level at the moment because we don't know the detail, we don't know where these cuts are going to come. All we're looking at the moment is how many million is going to be cut from each of these individual budgets. And I guess the point to make is that this is the same. It's the same. It's been every year since I've been a councillor, and it's quite. And as I've said, it's quite depressing. The reality of it is that we've had the same paper come before council as previous years. There isn't more money. There haven't been huge savings anticipated or efficiencies anticipated. We're looking bluntly at cuts to services in Norfolk. Bluntly, we're looking at increased council tax, even though we've heard that obviously no final decision has been made. But if we don't, what it does mean is if we don't get those continued 4.9% council tax, there's going to be even worse cuts to Norfolk. So residents of Norfolk need to be ready and prepared for this. To me, there's no reform there. Now, I guess the point that I want to make is I looked at that infrastructure budget overall, and I think that the figure that I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but it's roughly about 158 million anticipated in the infrastructure budget for next year. And when you look at the percentage of what the LMF fund would have been, I think it works out as something like less than 0.0 less than half of 1%. I mean, it's a tiny percentage of it.
You're actually giving us facts, not asking a question.
So the LMF fund here, this isn't a question, it's an observation. Thanks ever so much.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you for your observations. Appreciate them. I think, you've highlighted concerns. I appreciate the fact that you've said this is something that comes every year. You're obviously very experienced at it. What I would urge all members of this committee to do is really understand what's happening and going on and really engage with the budgeting process so that they can have the best input as they can on behalf of residents, because ultimately every pound that is spent unnecessarily is a pound that can't be spent on frontline services. So in terms of savings, eliminating waste, driving efficiencies, absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. We always want to get the best value for money for the taxpayer, and this budget process is also about identifying opportunities for that. You raised two particular points. You raised the £158 million. I don't know if that number off the top of my is correct. I'd have to defer to one of the officers. With regard to the Highways Local Member Fund, we do have the Cabinet Member for Highways present, but I will reiterate what the leader said in the Cabinet meeting. Forgive me, I'll read the quote, that there are a number of factors that contributed to this decision and that members should keep in mind that the Local Member Fund was originally carved out of the Highways budget. So you do make a comment about it being, I think essentially your point was making a drop in the ocean, but I would say that the ocean is made up of many, many drops and every single drop counts. So I don't know if you'd like some clarification on the £158 million or if you had a little follow-up question on that, if I can ask the officer to respond.
So just to confirm, the 158 million is the net revenue budget for infrastructure services, as you've identified, for 27-28 within the MTFS position. Clearly, that will change as we go through the budget setting process for the year.
Thank you, Titus. Any more questions from the floor? Councillor Webber.
I've got a few questions. I apologise for that. Okay. Just one question. A lot of the local member fund gets spent on, I would have thought, capital items, whereas potholes I would have thought was a revenue item. So are we swapping between budgets here somewhere, or have I got that wrong?
Government changed how potholes are funded to capital in 2014, so pothole repairs are now a capital item following government's lead.
Well, that's the first and best joke in the meeting so far. Excellent, thank you very much. I have a very detailed question on the budget setting paper, if you like. Paragraph 3.6 on page 33. there's an intriguing form of words. It talks about set savings targets and the minimum savings levels required to enable member choice. And I didn't understand the juxtaposition and what it actually meant between savings targets and member choice. Are we saying that if the savings targets were marginally smaller, there would be no member choice? Or if they were a bit bigger, there'd be too much member choice? What does it mean, please?
Councillor Thomas, would you like to answer?
I'll start if that's okay. Thank you for your question, Councillor Webber. And sorry, my joke about the Haynes Manual was not the first joke of the committee meeting. I'll forgive you. I will do better next time. So in terms of choice, everything is a choice, isn't it? As council, we can choose to do whatever we want, but what we have to do is make a balanced budget, and that's the de facto situation. You know, we have to do that. We would be rather silly to try and put an imbalanced budget through council when it comes next year. In terms of the actual specific wording, I will ask Harvey Bullen to respond on that point, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, Councillor, you've probably already answered it, is that what we've got in the report is the minimum level of savings that is needed to deliver a balanced budget for next year. So, yes, you could say that actually that doesn't give you any choice, because to do that you would need a high level of savings, which I think the point you've made. So, yes, we could change the wording in the report to make it absolutely clear, but I think you're both right in terms of, yes, the paper does set out what is required to deliver a balanced budget, which is the council's legal responsibility. Clearly, if members wish for choice around budget options, then services would need to identify a higher level of savings, and equally, as Councillor Thomas made reference to in her introduction, if members wish to set a lower level of council tax, then that would also need a higher level of savings. So there are a number of moving parts to setting the budget, some of which are around government figures, which at this stage we don't have complete certainty on, although with the fair funding announcements we have more clarity at this time, at this point in time in the budget process than previous years. But even with that information, we will get further information from government in the provisional settlement in December. So the budget process will continually evolve and the numbers will change as we go through. And that means the savings target, as we call it, in order to help deliver a balanced budget, will change as part of that process. So this is very much the start of the process, and it will evolve all the way through until we get to January Cabinet and then full council in February. Thank you.
Councillor Webber, would you like, hand is raised, would you like to follow up?
A different question. I don't need to follow up on that. The paper asks us to provide input into the budget process. That's what it's asking us to do. But I looked through the budget book and I looked through the paper, and I thought the sort of information that I would need to provide meaningful input into the budget would be a better understanding of what are the mandatory services we must provide under infrastructure and development. What are the sort of options we have available in terms of capital options to invest to improve efficiency of services? What are the options to increase recharges to help us lead to a more balanced budget? There's a whole host of additional information and granularity needed to actually provide any meaningful input to the budget process whatsoever. Now, some of it we may touch on when we look at the waste paper, but in general, I thought we were being asked a question here without enough information to provide any sensible input or answer. And I don't know if other councillors felt the same as me, but that's certainly how I felt.
Nods from their lips. Sorry. Councillor Thomas, would you like to come back to
Thank you for the comment. And actually that comment was raised yesterday at the Adult Social Care and Public Health Committee. So what we agreed to do yesterday was provide the detail around that for you so you can examine it. It makes complete sense, but then you know before you get to your next committee meeting. So I think Nicola's got a way of noting that. I'm not familiar with the process, but yes, we will be able to provide that for you.
And finally, any more questions? Councillor Alex Kemp.
Thank you. I would like to make an observation about the local member fund, and not just about potholes, but it was also used and able to be used for feasibility studies for small safety schemes that otherwise wouldn't have gone ahead. And also with seed funding, match funding for bigger projects. For example, it brought in £250,000 last year for the resurfacing or the surfacing of the Riverbank footpath, the King Charles III trail around the River Ouse, which wouldn't otherwise have happened. So there's going to be a big lacuna, a big gap now in what local members can do for Norfolk for their divisions, because there won't be these small amounts of funding which could be used that won't otherwise be available. So I would like to sound a warning note before the abolition of the local member fund is sort of set in stone, and I think that Norfolk is going to miss a lot, because otherwise, if that funding can't be made up, we will lose a lot of good. And I know that safety is said to be a priority. Well, it always should be a priority. And so what can be done, please?
Who would like to respond to Graham? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the question. In terms of the external funding bids, when we looked at the 300 plus local member fund schemes that were requested and delivered last financial year, I think there was only 2 which related to external funding out of those 300 plus. And what I'd say with things like the path you mentioned there are potential other funding sources. Active travel was highlighted earlier, so there are other options available out there to research when there are scheme proposals out there. So it's not that there's no other funding out there, it just might have to be redirected or another fund utilised.
Chair, if I might just come back very briefly.
Yes.
In some circumstances, the funding isn't there because we looked and we couldn't find anything. We had to find silver, but it needed to be match funded. So we would have lost the chance of that. And that's the point. The local member fund was creative and was a solution when nothing else, no other help could be found. And I do know that from previous experience. I would like to pay tribute to all of the officers in the infrastructure hurry team for making that project a reality, really against all the odds. So it was a very good success story. And I'm hoping that that kind of thing can be repeated. But without the local member fund, I don't think it would be possible.
Would you like to answer, Graham? Or
The only thing I'd say is, as mentioned, it might take 6 to 12 months longer to actually get to delivery, but Active Travel Fund might be an option in terms of that. That's administered by Active Travel England on the government's behalf, but there are usually some other options to explore. As I say, it might not fit with the immediate timescales, but there are other options out there.
Councillor Colwell.
Thank you, Chair. My question, hopefully this might be an officer question. Can we have reassurance that previous allocated funds to local member fund initiatives that haven't been completed will be completed, that the funds will remain there available? And if so, for how many years back? Because I have outstanding local member fund projects and that I have been pushing for that haven't yet been completed. So, and are we able to find out the total number of how many projects are still outstanding? Because I would like to. There are councillors that are sadly no longer with us that worked hard on these, and I would hate for that hard work to be lost.
Graham.
Thank you. So in terms of the report that was published on the local member fund, the Cabinet Member Delegate Decision report, that states that projects that are already in train, because like you say, there are a number still in train, as long as they can be delivered in this financial year, they will still go ahead. So the report states that. In terms of the, what was the second half of the question?
The number that are outstanding, could we be provided with that number? And you've indicated it's only 1 year just then, so we can't go. So if there's something sadly that I had 2 years back, you're saying, Rob, that you've lost that. Is that right?
Yes, but with the local member fund, the majority of the schemes tended to be simple, straightforward schemes, so bollard installation or a bit of surfacing or patching or a village gateway. So those types of schemes should be deliverable within the remains of this current financial year. And because those schemes were quite small and straightforward, yes, we can obviously send an update in terms of what was outstanding, but most of those schemes will have been turned around in the financial year. The ones that wouldn't have been are things like speed limit requests and changes, purely because of the legal and statutory processes we have to go through. But if they're already in train, this year should give enough time for those schemes to be completing that process as well.
And does that include all bus shelters? Because we're waiting for lots in West Norfolk. Thanks.
Yeah, that would include bus shelters. Again, that should be, I'll say, a fairly quick turnaround. I know the provider's got quite a number in terms to deliver, but yeah, that should be this financial year.
I think Councillor Webber, yes, he did raise his hand.
Yeah, and thank you for that information, Graham. Does this also extend to speed limit schemes where the feasibility study has been completed? But now it's unclear whether the funding is available there to actually implement the agreed limit.
That's an interesting example. In terms of that, we'd have to look at what other funding options are available to take that forward post-feasibility study. Again, I think that's a relatively small number of schemes, probably half a dozen or so.
Can I pick that up with you after the meeting, please?
Yeah,
thank you.
Please do.
Councillor Thomas.
Just addressing the question of using the funding going forward, the actual Cabinet member decision that is published on CMIS of the leaders ceasing the Highways Local Member Fund at point 3.4, if you do enjoy it, it does actually mention there about what will happen with the previously started projects. So that is actually set out in that report.
Any more questions? I think that's... Yep, Niall, Councillor Niall Adams. Thank you. Nice tie, Niall.
Thank you. So, in the last year, Norfolk County Council have spent upwards of 945 million on contractors, and within highways, that is that's more than any of the other department budgets alone. Could we reduce our bill by hiring staff directly through the council and cutting out the middleman?
Over to Graham, I think.
That's a very interesting question.
Good question.
Like you've highlighted, a lot of the frontline service delivery work that the highways teams do is frontline highways delivery. Prior to 2019, we did have an in-house contractor delivering routine maintenance works, but the challenge with that was around keeping the competencies going. As health and safety law has evolved over time and construction design management regulations have changed over time, the whole construction industry has got more challenging in terms of keeping those competencies up to date. So back in 2019, the decision was made to transfer the council's workforce out to a contractor, and that provided the council with the saving. So in effect, that was more efficient to go to the market to get that delivered. As I mentioned, the health and safety regime world and the contractual world has changed significantly since then in terms of construction, which probably reinforces that decision even more. So we've recently gone out and procured the major highways contract. So from April this year, Kier took over that contract from Tarmac, and we're constantly reviewing that contract to ensure it's delivering best value and value for money. So, like you've highlighted, yes, there are different models out there. For Norfolk, the current model we've got has recently been reviewed prior to the procurement exercise, and felt that was, and members agreed at the time that was the best and most appropriate form of contract out there to deliver the key services in terms of highways.
I think that's about it, isn't it? Anyone else? No. On the basis of the information that is being recommended for us in the report, are there any further recommendations which members wish to put forward? I believe, Councillor Webber, your point of extra info from the Finance Department can be...
That's taken forward as a request, yeah.
Yeah, so... Councillor Ludson.
Could I put forward a related point? The access that we have as members is the public government documentation for incentive-based funding, but the report makes reference in a few places to weighting and things like that, which leads me to believe officers are maybe operating under different information. Like, do you have more detailed information on how the incentive-based funding works for various different funding pools? Because some of it's very vague, kind of businessy language, like, let's all do long-term stuff, let's not be reactive, let's have professional development, which I think we can all agree would be good. But how do we achieve that?
I'm just looking a bit blank there. Is that in terms of a specific highways element within the report, or is that a more general?
Yeah, sorry, I should be more specific. So the HMB incentive
right.
document is what I was working from for that. And you mentioned like the distinction between capital and revenue funding, for example.
Yeah.
And there's an incentive-based element that's based on like professional development and long-term planning, which I would have assumed comes under revenue because it would be people we're paying who are doing that professional development. So I was a little confused by your response. I was just wondering if you're working from something that's like a little bit different than what we've got, maybe?
All we're working on is what the Department for Transport has published, and we are expecting more to come out from the Department for Transport, but we can circulate the information that they've got on the Department for Transport webpage to committee members, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, that must be frustrating for you. Sorry.
As I mentioned, this is a very new requirement just introduced by government and Department for Transport. So, as I say, it's still emerging. We're still awaiting more advice from the Department for Transport. Yeah, so it is an emerging area at this moment in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So on that basis, I think we can move forward with the recommendation of the report and move on to the next point. Turning now to item 8, potholes and the process and performance. Graham, would you like to introduce the report? You're busy today.
Thank you very much. Yes, so in terms of the pack you've got, the next item is potholes, process and performance. So I'm pleased to introduce this report, which provides an overview of how our highways teams both manage and repair potholes across Norfolk. The report sets out steps we take from inspection through to repair, highlighting performance against our targets, and outlines the measures being taken to improve efficiency, resilience and value for money. The report shows we do already perform well on pothole repairs, but there's always more room for improvement, and maintaining a safe and reliable highway network is a key priority. And potholes, we know, is something which local residents and businesses are affected by on a day-to-day basis. And the report also sets out and highlights the challenge in terms of, and it's been touched on previously already, the maintenance backlog that both we and every highway authority nationally has, just purely because of the shortfall in highways funding over at least the last couple of decades. The report also just highlights how we're working with our teams and contractors, looking at options into trying new and different pothole repair techniques, and would welcome the committee's scrutiny of this important area. So I'm joined today in terms of questions by Alex, who's one of our contracts managers, and Jason Morse, who's the West Area Manager. So happy to answer questions.
Yeah, topical subject, so I'm sure there might be 1 or 2 questions. Councillor Colwell.
Thank you, Chair. If I could start with an observation leading into a question. Yeah, I mean, look at those numbers, 8,146 potholes repaired and 99.7% within the completion timescale. So I think, you know, a word of congratulations needs to go to the officers to be recognised for that. We are a huge county, a rural area, and to see those figures. As a councillor, I must admit, in the winter months, potholes is one of the main issues I seem to get emails about, and I think quite important at 3.2.2, it states those priority A, those 2-hour repairs, those urgent repairs, 94.6% are done on time. So yeah, it's really good, but there's obviously stuff, we could always be better, but that's really good. So I just wanted to kind of start by that. My question is in relation to just picking up on looking at alternatives and ways forward. And I guess I wanted a little bit of reassurance today that we as a county aren't looking at some of these super huge Pothole Pro, the JCBs and those likes, because we've learnt from other county councils like Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, who say that these huge things struggle on narrow roads. They don't provide good value for money. We look at Lincolnshire that states it's better for larger potholes, 5 to 3 metres squared. So I wanted to make sure that we as a county weren't going to be going down that. We have so many rural small roads. We don't have a motorway in our county. So yeah, it was just really some reassurance that these other options we're looking at, we're not looking at these giant things. Thank you.
I'm guessing Graham will answer this one as well.
Yes, yeah, more than happy to. I think it's fair to say that we're always looking at new and different technology. So we don't want to rule anything in, and we don't want to rule anything out. So you mentioned a few systems there, and some sort of feedback. There's also other feedback from other authorities which do highlight those systems do have a sweet spot in terms of preventative and proactive highway maintenance repairs. So from our point of view, that's worth exploring. The other innovative technology is worth exploring. Potholes are an issue which affects every single highway authority across the country and when you go abroad. So it is an area where there is constant innovation out there in the marketplace. So that's what we're keen to explore further. It was an innovation when probably about 10 years ago we brought in the velocity patching machine and the archway machine in parts of the county. That's now commonplace in terms of our pothole repair work, but as highlighted in the report, the key thing with potholes is actually trying to do that preventative, proactive maintenance to stop the potholes forming themselves, and that's where actually, as Norfolk, we've had some success in that. We can always do more. We are reliant on government funding, but we do spend a lot more on that preventative work than pothole repairs than many other local authorities.
Yeah, I think on the basis that we are very much a rural county, we are pretty much on the money on this. We're never going to get to utopia, but it's pretty good. So, Councillor Webber.
I'm very confused. The County Council in December said it was up to date with potholes. Now we've been told there's a massive backlog and we need to use the local member fund to fill the potholes. What exactly has happened? And as far as I can see, based on this report, what exactly has happened since the end of March, which this report covers?
In terms of the maintenance backlog, we've been reporting that to this committee usually each summer. So there was a report brought to this committee in July last year which highlighted that the current highways maintenance backlog is between 70 and 80 million pounds. So that's against a bench line from set in 2009. So that maintenance backlog figure has been there. In terms of potholes are constantly forming, being repaired, and then other potholes are forming elsewhere. So it is a continuous item. So in terms of a statement about we're up to date. We'd have to look into that in a bit more detail just to see the source of that, because, as I say, we're constantly, our highways teams, our operational teams are constantly out on the network identifying defects, including potholes. Members of the public report potholes as well, and all of those figures are in this report. So from that point of view, it is a constant battle. And December's an unusual time of year. You'll see from the sort of graph or chart on page 45 in your pack, that time of year is the peak of our pothole season, which, because of the weather, freeze-thaw action with ice and frosts. Last winter, we had a significant amount of rain, so the water level and the water table across Norfolk was quite high. Again, that water, combined with the action of vehicles going over the road, created a challenge in terms of potholes. So we'd have to look at the source of that comment in December, but given the seasonal time of year, that would be a challenge to say that categorically.
I presume the source was within your team, and I think it was reported in the EDP, and I have had it verbally repeated to me since. So I took it with, as being a significantly credible amount of information. Do we have monthly, sort of end-of-month data on number of potholes that have been reported but haven't been completed yet?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We do have that data available, so we can supply that on a monthly basis as required, of course.
And I think it would be very interesting if members and myself as a substitute could be provided with that information, perhaps going back over the last 12 months, so we can see how the emerging picture occurs.
Yeah, no problem.
What I would say with potholes we normally would quote between 5,000 and 10,000 potholes a year in Norfolk. That's the sort of average over, say, the last decade. Each and every winter season is different. Weather conditions are very different each and every year. So the numbers of potholes it does vary, usually within that 5,000 to 10,000 sort of a bandwidth. But yeah, it might be something, because we do receive a number of queries about potholes as well from members of the public. So that might be something that we can look at, seeing how we can just get that monthly snapshot information published on the County Council's webpage, so it's then accessible for all, including residents.
I think next was Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. Looking at the longevity of the average pothole repair, I was speaking to our area manager recently about some potholes which are on an A road around Kings Lynn, and they're now needing their third repair this year. Even allowing for a first temporary repair, that would still only be an average of three months. And the materials that are used, the techniques that are used, obviously there's a lot of innovation in the market, but with the amount of water we're getting, rain in the winters, we're getting milder, rainier winters, how are we keeping track of the fact that we really need to do better? We need to have more durable pothole repairs. And do we know how many of these 8,146 pothole repairs are repeat repairs? How are we tracking, how are we doing, how are we bringing in the new technology, and are we actually inventing that ourselves in our own labs in Norfolk?
So thanks for your question, Councillor Kemp. You refer to the A road, and I know the road that you're talking about in West Norfolk is the A149. We are sweating that asset because we are surfacing the complete length between the two roundabouts this year, so we haven't made any further permanent repairs, as in patching repairs, because obviously it would be a waste of funding knowing that we were going to plane and inlay that surface. With regards to innovations and materials, we're constantly looking at new materials and innovations to give us some longevity to some of the potholes on the network. But with regards to are those potholes continuously refilled? We would need to run that data and provide those details back to you.
I believe Councillor Colwell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so yesterday there was a BBC article and it had a quote from Robin Hunter-Clark, the Deputy Leader, and it was about the LMF fund. But he said, we've listened to the experts on this. They're telling us we can actually fix more potholes, more resurfacing across Norfolk if we do it this way, so let's give it a go. What are we able to find out, do the officers know, is this in-house experts, or what experts was he talking about? And I'm just interested to know more information about this.
I think in terms of the comment, we've got the local member fund, which was lots of individual schemes. So by putting this money into pothole repairs and preventative maintenance work, that should reduce the amount of potholes forming in the future and enable more potholes to be repaired. So that's the theory behind it. In terms of the question about experts, that is the discussions in terms of officers and cabinet members.
Another question then, Councillor Colwell. You're next, Tom.
Thank you. This is in relation to the issue of pothole reporting. So first of all, the public, we're told, are doing a great job at reporting these. The numbers have gone up at 4.2.1, and talks about the average public satisfaction of Norfolk is above average, so that's good. The reporting side of it, I always tell people, and I'll help here, but this is how you report yourself, and we should be encouraging people, and it's definitely gone up. We can see the number of people that are reporting. I am concerned, however, about these other reporting mechanisms. Now, this was brought up in the April Cabinet meeting, where it talked about it was unfortunate that the Great Yarmouth MP, Rupert Lowe, had set up his own reporting scheme. And in those papers, it says that it caused 40 plus additional hours of officer time. So I was interested, has that got worse? Has it got better? And what is the cost on taxpayers' money of this MP's action? Thanks.
I think it's fair to say we receive feedback, including pothole reports, from a whole variety of different means. So, like you've highlighted, the MP had one way. We get other reports from MPs. We get reports direct from members of the public coming in to us and the area teams. So, pothole reports do come to us in a variety of different ways. That's always been the case, but that's where we always try to encourage people to use the website, because that's the quickest and most effective way to do it. Our area teams are out and about on the network, so from that point of view, and they all have digital technology and tablets. So if a pothole report comes in and they're nearby, it will get inspected and then potentially ordered to the contractor within a few minutes. So from that point of view, encouraging people to use the County Council website and the reporting system there is by far the quickest and most efficient way. Plus customers get, if they sign up to it, they can then get updates in terms of the defect, so they'll know when it's been completed as well, which is key information. But yeah, say we've always received information in a variety of different ways. Our preference is the website there. So if you can all encourage that, that would be much appreciated.
And have we identified a cost for all this additional work that our officers have had?
We've not, through either the example you highlighted there or the other examples, because as a public organisation, we receive information in a whole host of different ways.
Councillor Tom Ludson was next, and then Stephen Bailey.
So I think we can all agree Norfolk County Council does a good job of preventative care. We've got lower number of potholes per mile, but there seems to be a bit of a mismatch between the government assessment. I'm sorry to keep coming back to that amber rating, but there seems to be a bit of a mismatch between our transport asset management plan, which prioritises A roads, but on that assessment we did worse on the A roads. So I've got kind of a two-part question, and the first part is there a way that Norfolk County Council is feeding back to central government about that assessment process? Because it does sound like there are some frustrating metrics that have been used to analyse what we've done. And the second question is, can we do things in a slightly different way to be more in line with their metrics, whether they're valid or not?
The answer to the first bit, well, actually, the answer to both bits is yes. So we and many other highway authorities fed back straight away to Department for Transport colleagues in terms of the assessment process. One of the key factors in terms of that was, and this is something we're always very aware of, you've always got to be comparing apples with apples. So from the information that those assessment rankings were all based on wasn't in effect a level playing field, because there was no prior advice or even awareness that a ranking system was going to be produced from it. So it was just a questionnaire of which there was, say, limited guidance as to how you fill in the questionnaire. So 155 highway authorities or so across the country, there's probably about 155 different ways that those questions were answered. So that's a key bit of feedback which has gone back to the Department for Transport. You must have some criteria, guidance about how to fill in, so you are comparing. So let's say that's already been fed back. The indications are from our interactions with the Department for Transport, that's been listened to, because I say we did it not only as ourselves as Norfolk, but also as a sector. So from that point of view, that's positive. And then the second half of the question, just remind me again, sorry.
Is there anything locally that we can be doing slightly different with the weighting? So, for example, the A roads, right? We do slightly worse than national average on the A roads, but in our transport asset management plan, we say we prioritise them. So,
yeah, and that just comes down to the length of A road we've got and the budget that we've got available. So, although we're prioritising it in terms of the budget, ultimately it would be good if we could spend more on the A roads, particularly resurfacing schemes and surface dressing. So there's always tweaks like that. And one thing really positive in terms of the government funding for highways, over the next 2 or 3 financial years, it does increase for all authorities nationally quite significantly. So from that point of view, that's where hopefully we can invest more in that particular case, A roads condition, to hopefully improve our ranking. Obviously, everyone else will improve their ranking as well, hopefully. But yeah, as I say, there are measures, and we're very focused in terms of the return that we've got to make to the Department for Transport this year and how that affects the rankings.
Okay, yeah, sorry, one small follow-up question. Oh, sorry.
Can I make an observation?
Just press that.
I travel outside the county quite extensively, and when you go into Cambridgeshire, their roads are absolutely appalling. So we should commend our highways on keeping our roads in such a reasonable condition, considering the financial restraints that they have upon them. They do a bloody good job. Yep. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, I would just like to emphasise, I really do think you do a good job. I'm just asking if we can move money into different areas so we can get more money from central government. I'm not attacking local officers. Yeah, I appreciate Councillor Thomas is gone, so maybe this is perhaps not a question we can answer, but is Cabinet considering potentially moving money to higher priority for A-roads then?
You may have a response from Councillor Tom Dickerson.
Currently, at the moment, we're looking at every option available to us. We know, and if we all go out door knocking, we know the biggest thing on the street, people say, is potholes. Is one of the most important things to people. Okay, we are desperate to try and get a resolution to get this resolved. As I say, nothing is off the table. And that means new equipment, new ways of doing stuff, absolutely everything. We are looking at everything we possibly can. Okay?
Councillor Stephen Bailey, question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking forward with regard to potholes, we're talking about obviously what's going on now and dealing with the issues and the backlog. But with more electric vehicles coming onto our roads, it looks like we're going to have a lot more potholes to deal with. So will there be any extra funding from government for that? They're pushing us towards net zero and encouraging everybody to buy electric cars, which are obviously very heavy, and they're going to cause a lot of issues on the surface of the roads. And the second point I'd like to make, following on from what previous councillor said, was that I went out to Highways Agency out at Aylsham with two other fellow Reform UK councillors, and we were very impressed with the way in which the team out there were dealing with and the priority they were giving to potholes and the road services. And they need more funding, and that's what we've been doing, looking at ways of directing money towards Highways Agency so that we can actually deal with these issues. And it's a shame that we've got such a large amount in debt. If the previous administration had perhaps been a little less cavalier with funding various things and taken this as a priority as we now are, we might not be exactly where we are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bay. Just an interjection there that my wife's Tesla is a lot less in weight than Tom's Range Rover, and that's an engine and that's a battery. Oh, Graham.
I was going to say, did you want us to come back in terms of the question? The simple answer is no, there's no extra funding from government in terms of electric vehicles or traffic growth figures. The only aspect is what I just mentioned a moment ago. It's positive news that actually the trajectory for highway maintenance funding from government is positive, and I think it represents something like a 50 to 70% increase in funding over the next 4 years. So that's positive, but no, it's not to do with specific EV side of things. And thank you for the comments about Damien and the North Area team. I'll make sure that's passed on. And thank you, Councillor Gold, for your comments as well.
Okay, I think that's time to wrap this up. So recommendations on the report on page 42 and 43. If we can just agree that, please. The committee agrees. A few nods of heads would help. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And are there any further recommendations which members wish to put forward? No. Okay, moving on. Turning now to item 9, Waste Services Annual Performance and Policy Framework Review. Kate, would you like to introduce your report, please? Oh, Pat's going to do it.
I will have a go at this, if I can see it.
Good delegation.
Right. I'm pleased to introduce this report, which highlights a busy year for our waste services as we continue to deliver efficient services while preparing for significant national waste reforms. There are a number of key highlights that I'd like to mention, such as we've had over 1 million recycling centre bookings, the successful delivery of planned financial savings through service improvements, the fact that 75% of materials that come into our recycling centres are being diverted from disposal through reuse, recycling and recovery. Our 14 reuse shops continue to be hugely popular, with more than 1,300 tonnes of material being sold for reuse and reused, generating an income of £640,000. There will be a presentation at Kings Lynn Saddledoe Depot to Nelson's Journey for £32,500, and we will be presenting the cheque to them, which is a fantastic achievement, and we should applaud them for their efforts in that. Looking ahead, the team is prepared for some major changes, such as government's simpler recycling, which aims to standardise the types of household waste collected for recycling across the UK. Countrywide food waste collections and the deposit return scheme, all of which reshape how waste services operate in Norfolk. And finally, as the report outlines, and as many of you will be aware, we have recently had major issues, collecting electrical waste in Norfolk due to a catastrophic fire in April, which saw the business that collects our electrical waste stop operating. This was the fire in Thetford. This was on the back of some significant national capacity issues with fridges and freezers, following the plant fires and site closures. I know the impact this has had for our residents, but also how hard the team has worked to secure a new producer compliance scheme as quickly as possible. And so, much to my delight as well, I'm really pleased to be able to confirm here today that from next Monday, the 13th of July, all of our recycling centres will be able to accept all electrical waste again, which will be a relief to many of you because you probably had lots of questions on this. So there we are. And that's everything from me. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Pat. Does the committee have any show of hands already? Look at this. The Lib Dems are very good today. Right on it. I don't know who put the hand up first. Rob, was it you or was it Jim? Age before beauty, or is it the other way around?
I've got a very simple question. We're always very good, Chair. You don't need to worry about that. I just want to clarify, because I've been around talking to parish councils about what they need to take to South Norfolk, what they need to take to the county sites, and what they need to hold on to for the interim. Are you saying that everything can now go to a county site from Monday?
Pat, mic on, please.
There's limitations on fridges and freezers. There is not enough national capacity for them. Kate has written a letter to, who is it? Kate, I can't remember.
So we've written a letter to the Minister highlighting those issues with national capacity, but going back to Pat's announcement we are able to accept all electrical items from Monday. So that does include fridges and freezers, and we've built in some contingency for what we expect to be quite a busy early period with that. But we are alive to the fact that there are some challenges nationally with those items, so we have to be a little bit prepared and cautious from that point of view.
So the implication is that fridges and freezers on Monday, but I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it could stop by Friday if you get too many.
No, I don't believe that it's going to be in a position like that. I just think we need to be aware that that is something that the whole country is dealing with as a challenge. So all of our operators nationally are struggling in some instances to try and find the right outlet on that day. So we're working through that, and that doesn't take away from what we're able to offer next week and in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Kate. And we're not a superstitious council, obviously, because it's the 13th.
Carl, can I come back in there very quickly?
Thank you.
There is one other thing that we need to do, which is to educate the public with the disposal of batteries, because this is what is causing the fires. Although we had one last week, which was a firework that hadn't previously been exploded, and it did in one of the containers. So batteries are our big problem. So education, really there? Okay.
Any more questions from the floor? Thank you. Councillor Rob Colwell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I note that there's been an increase in bookings on Thursdays following the reduction of the Wednesday recycling. And obviously, because Reform didn't have a manifesto as such, we don't really know what the parties and the administration's view on the waste recyclings are. Can we have reassurance today that there are no further expected cuts to those days? And has there been any discussion about that? Thank you.
Pass this to Kate.
Wednesday closures have been in place now for, I think, coming up to or just over a year. We have seen a little bit of an increase on Thursdays with bookings, but that largely calmed down, I think, after people got into a new routine. And that service change did reflect way lots of other councils operate as well across the country. So at the moment we've been managing the recycling centres quite successfully, the ones which were open 6 days a week, and aren't seeing those capacity issues on a Thursday.
Thank you, Kate. I may be wrong in saying this, or maybe right in saying this, but I believe it saved us 200k as well for shutting on a Wednesday. Kate, is that correct? Did it save the council 200,000 by shutting on a Wednesday as well? Did I read somewhere?
Yes, that's correct. So we did make the savings that we had set out in the savings report by closing on a Wednesday.
Thank you. Councillor Rob Colwell.
Thank you, Chair. I note that there's reference to the Sheringham Recycling Centre, and obviously this has been going through the courts, but that has now run its course. I was inquiring as to whether or not this new administration is intending to continue with that current site, given the sensitivities and the proximity to a children's family and outdoor education centre.
Who would like to answer this? I'm guessing Kate again.
Yes, happy to. Yes, you're right to recognise that there was quite a process that we went through with that Sheringham Recycling Centre. I think we're at a point now where we're able to sort of regroup, look at our capital plan, and then work with the administration to see how they'd like to take things forward with us.
Councillor Henson.
Thank you very much. It's just an observation, really, but I'd like to congratulate the Waste Department for the way they've handled things over the last year. They've had a lot of tough times, had to make challenges that most councils have struggled with as well, and they've come out really well. Well, I'd also like to thank the fire brigade that came out to the fire in Cossey just only a few weeks ago, courtesy of, again, batteries. And I agree with you that we do need more education on batteries when it goes to recycling. The fire brigade acted in the most heroic way I've seen. They came out in force, they got it under control and literally protected the area. Again, this is all great because our council works well with the frontline services, the council works well with each other, and I have to congratulate them for that.
Yeah, I reiterate that, sorry. Actually,
Cole, if I can come in there, I've asked for better signage at all of the waste centres. So when people come in, they know that their general waste, which they bring in, is going to be inspected, because they get very agitated by that and they become quite aggressive to the staff. But they have to go through it to ensure there are no batteries, anything that can be recycled. So it's going to happen. So we need to get signage there. Also on the website for the booking, when they're booked, they see the things, no asbestos in the rubble, which happens as well, and vapes, which cause problems also. So we need to, again, back to education, letting the public know what's expected of them to make their lives easier. Because they do a brilliant job. If you have the opportunity, you should go round one of the waste centres and see everything they do. Even your green waste, the garden waste, goes away to a centre, is composted and goes back, and you can go and buy that from your waste centres quite easily. £4.75 for a sack. Apparently it's brilliant stuff, and we just need to let people know, really. So there we are. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with you. Like you said, education is the key. Having been a driver of recycling over the years, I've done it as a job. I know exactly the hazards that are in each recycling centre, also especially electronics area, because obviously these places are warehouses, heat up, any of them batteries can quite easily explode. Trouble is, people do still today throw batteries into the bin. We need to educate people that they need to go to a designated place, not into our bins.
Thank you, Councillor Henson, through the chair. The next question comes from Councillor Alex Kemp.
Thank you. My question is about the charges at the recycling centre and the booking system. Now, I note that you've got the survey that says lots of people say that they're happy with that, but the feedback that I'm getting from the area I represent is that since we've had the charges and the booking system, it has been harder for people to it's a barrier, and there's been more fly tipping seen around, and this problem has escalated. And of course, fly tipping is a crime, but we've seen more since these changes. And I would like to ask, the survey you've had, the kind of reach that had, was it just online? Was it available to people who don't have a computer? How did you actually collect those findings? Because that's quite at variance from what I'm hearing on the doorstep from lots and lots of residents who feel that we should go back to the system where you could just turn up and we didn't have those charges.
Kate, would you like to come back to Councillor Kemp?
Yes, thank you. I think there's a few questions in there. So if we start with the booking system, and you've mentioned charging, so I think that's the additional pay-as-you-throw service that is offered on top of the free allowance for DIY waste. So we introduced or reintroduced a free allowance in about 2 years ago in line with the government legislation. So in terms of charging, I think that's just if people have excess DIY waste on top of what they can bring in free of charge, then that's an option there for customers. They may choose to use the free allowance and they can continue to do that, or they may choose to get a skip if they have a large amount of waste, but hopefully that provides a good option if people are visiting the centre anyway. I appreciate what you say about booking, that people would like to maybe turn up when they want to, and they still can do that through the booking service, because it only takes a few minutes and we have capacity at all of our sites nearly all of the time to make a 1 to 2 minute booking before they visit the site. And I think it's fair to say that it's quite common now for many services that we use that we have to make an arrangement in some way before we visit and make a booking. And it certainly has helped us manage the centres a lot more efficiently. So that's come from a couple of ways, really, that we're able to smooth out the bookings when you're getting a busy hazardous waste event or a particularly busy weekend. It means that we don't get that rush and that queue going forward. And it makes people more accountable for the waste that they're bringing. So if we're having people perhaps disguising trade waste as household waste, they're required to put their details in of that booking, and we're able to then challenge what we see as trade customers who are using a free taxpayer household waste service. So that's made quite a difference to us in actually managing the recycling centres. I think your question lastly was about the satisfaction survey. So that was published online on social media at our recycling centres. So it was something that we tried to push out to get as many responses as possible. We got them from customers who use the sites and also people who don't use the sites as well, giving their feedback on what the sort of reasons are that they choose to use other waste services or perhaps don't generate the waste at all.
Can I just ask if that survey was available in libraries for people to send written responses in as well? Because I'm aware that we have a lot of older people that don't use the internet, and I'm concerned in case they were excluded from this survey.
Our library services are always very good at facilitating anything that we do more broadly as a council, so they help make bookings, and they would also be able to help somebody fill in a survey. But we didn't print out vast amounts of this survey to deliver and leave around the county. So it was largely online, but the options are always available to get support filling it in elsewhere.
Councillor Hudson, I think you are next.
Thank you. Yeah, my question's in relation to trade waste, which we've seen a reduction in, as you said, Kate, since we've had the booking system. Is Cabinet looking at ways we can enhance this and further reduce trade waste? Because we're going to have serious cost pressures on our incinerators, and if there's nasty stuff in there, it costs even more. So I'm just wondering if we're looking at ways where we can reduce that trade waste further, because it seems like a good opportunity to do so.
I have here in front of me the trade waste costings, and it isn't cheap for people to dispose of trade waste. That's something perhaps we should look at, because for just over a mixed load, half a vehicle is £243 on here. That's one of the ones that I'm looking at. A medium van, 243, which is quite a bit of money. If we could reduce that, maybe we would stop some of the fly tipping, but that's something we'll have to consider later on. For domestic DIY, the charges are very low. So flat glass, £6, rubble, £4.50. And this is for DIY waste, which is, I thought was quite acceptable, really, there.
Yeah, if I can just come back on your point on trade waste, ultimately that is quite expensive, but it's just being passed on to taxpayers, right? We are having to pay £140 a tonne to send it to incinerator. We're going to have to be paying a lot more in the future. There's more legislation coming in 2028, which means we're going to be paying more. I think this is something we potentially need to get ahead of.
For fly tipping, we need possibly more surveillance, which is the only way of stopping that. CCTV in various places. So, where I drive through Thetford Forest to Santon Downham, and the fly tipping there is absolutely disgraceful. Unbelievable amounts of fly tipping. Yeah. And can I come back to your comment on booking online, please? Have you tried to do it yourself? Have you made the attempt to try to book online?
Yeah.
It is so simple, and the times are available where you can pick your own time.
The question should come through the chair.
You are. All right then, Carl.
Sorry.
Because I can't see that lady's name, so...
Councillor Alex Kemp, or Alexander, I don't know.
Councillor
Alex.
Kemp, right. So
Alexander
you should have a go at booking yourself. It's very, very simple. I booked to go and visit our recycling centre in Saddlebow. Very easy to do. And also in the library, you have a number of people that will help you go onto any of their computer terminals, and you could do it there. And they're very good at helping elderly people to facilitate that type of thing.
Yeah, might I just make the point that it's not just the aspect of the physical booking of it, it's when people turn up, there have been issues around the slot, whether they get there in time, whether they're then able to, they have to queue outside, or they're not allowed to have their slot because they've come 5 minutes too late.
Thank you. We do not enforce people arriving specifically within their slot. That's definitely not the position that we take. We have a 15-minute sort of guide arrival time, but our staff are really flexible on, they understand the travel time that people take and all the unexpected occurrences that can happen. So it's not you need to arrive and leave within that 15 minutes. It's very simply, this is your sort of, planned arrival, and we'd like it if you arrive as close as you can to within that window, because it helps keep the service running smoothly, but that's the only limit.
Kate, if I can interject in again, sorry. Having spoke to the guys at the recycling centres, north and south, it's a case of trying to get there in your slot. If you're 30 minutes late, they don't mind. It's just don't get there early. I think it's more or less. Is that right?
Things happen either way, so they'll facilitate you coming.
Yeah, but I think if you're 15, 20 minutes late because of some issue of traffic, roadworks, whatever, then I don't think they're not going to turn you away. So I think next person was Councillor Fancy.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to pay a compliment for this service. I'll be totally honest, I was one of the sceptics when the charging was introduced. I felt it wasn't going to work. I felt the booking system wasn't going to work, and I thought, frankly and honestly, it'd be chaotic. But I always admit when I was wrong, and I was definitely wrong on this one, because it does work. And I've used it myself. There is peak times, for example, Sunday mornings, and I would totally concur with Kate, the operatives who work on these centres, and I can talk specifically about Norwich North and Norwich South, actually, are very helpful and constructive, and they manage the situation, they manage the individuals very, very well. And I think this has been a step forward, because I remember when we first introduced it, I was taking a lot of stick and I was taking a lot of criticism and, why has the council brought this in, But the very same people are actually telling me now, on the whole, it works, and it works well. So, I think we definitely got this right, and me as an individual definitely got that one wrong. But I would highlight two other areas which the portfolio holder has already alluded to. Trade waste, I think we need to be looking at that. Yes, there is plenty of facility to deal with trade waste through the various skip companies and waste disposal companies, but I think that just probably needs another look at. The other one's fly tipping. Well, fly tipping, to be honest, is inconsistent across the county. The different district councils have different regimes for dealing with it, and it's more prevalent in some areas than others. And I'm afraid you've got the same type of people who are going to fly tip, frankly and honestly, aren't going to make a booking at the recycling centre. They just aren't going to do it. So if there's a case for One Norfolk Unitary, the management and the apprehension, prosecution and the dealing with the fly tipping problem could absolutely be done better with a coordinated single unitary approach, and to target areas, again, the portfolio holders alluded to, targeting of hotspot areas where fly tipping is prevalent, and frankly, catch the perpetrators and prosecute them. So I think there's three different issues there. In my honest opinion, the recycling centres are working for every conceivable reason. Trade waste, pleased to hear it's being looked at, because it's important that we try to help regulated businesses which are doing the right thing and actually trying to dispose of their rubbish legitimately and legally. It's absolutely right to do that. There is a lot of facilities out there. And fly tipping, of course, we need a coordinated approach, because, there's issues of people moving, farmers or whatever, I'm not saying farmers, perhaps individuals moving fly tipping off fields onto verges to get it dealt with by the council and this kind of stuff. So in reality, we need a universal approach to that, and hopefully the administration, I'm sure, will be looking at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Next was Councillor Conroy.
Working? Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
Hi. As a city councillor, I've had quite a few issues with fly tipping, and speaking to the people in the city council who control that, they said there's been a 24% increase in the last 12 months. So there's obviously something that's causing that. Is it the booking? Is it the fact that there's charges on the waste? Is there something we could do, for example, on one of the less busy days, that we do actually see a trial where we can have people turn up?
Councillor Pat Gold.
I will respond to that. Previously, people used to turn up with their trade waste, give them a tenner in their pocket and dump everything they wanted to. We've eliminated all the corruption, which was costing the council a fortune, because these people were getting away with just getting rid of everything at our expense or the public's expense. That's been stopped by the systems that are in place, which we can only say is the right way forward. And now we need to deal with the fly tippers so they deal with their own waste properly themselves. And the only way of doing that is to catch them and penalise them properly, which we're still not doing. So the answer is, because of the tightening up, the corruption has gone, and it's causing the fly tipping from that perspective as well.
Yeah, which is good, obviously. But the point I'm trying to make is, we have CCTV in those systems. We have the vehicle registrations being picked up as they go in and out. So there's still an opportunity where we can see if it would work, where people who just with normal vehicles would just want to drop the normal stuff off would come more often if they don't have to book. Just on one quiet day a month, just say that on this particular day of the month we can try this and see if we get an uptick in people coming as well.
Can I just remind members, if you want to respond, you come through the chair. Thank you.
Carl, can I respond to that?
You can.
The booking system is really, really simple. Have you tried it yourself? It is so easy to use. It's, a toddler could probably do it. So it is so easy. And you will get your time that you want to go, invariably, unless it's a very busy day. So a little bit of flexibility, but it is simple to use. Really simple, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Webber was next.
Sorry, can I just respond to that?
You can. Sorry.
So yes, I have used the booking system. It's not about me, it's about the people who have the issues.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Webber. Thank you for waiting.
I'd like to agree with all the very positive comments made about the waste service. I'd also like to make a suggestion, and that is that as well as putting up notices reminding people about batteries and putting more information on the website, there is a gentleman, and it is normally a gentleman, who stands there and ticks off my registration plate when I go to the dump. He might want to come and have a word with me and just ask me if I've checked that there aren't any batteries stuck in waste. That might change my behaviours.
Yeah, they should be doing that, because if
Councillor Pat,
sorry, Carl, if I can
like to
come
address
through you.
Councillor Webber?
Yes, Jim. They should be doing that. If you've got a mixed waste, they will go through it with you. They should go through it with you to determine if there's any recycling or any batteries in that There will be someone standing at that container to go through it, and this causes some animosity. And if that doesn't happen at the tip you've been to, then we should know about it.
I think maybe the staff have been trained to recognise Liberal Democrats and know they're good citizens, and so there's no point talking to them because they do the right thing. But I mean, I might be wrong about that. I do have a more serious point to make about trade waste. It is the only area of the recycling services that I've received complaints about. And when the booking service was brought in and the charges were increased materially, it felt like a double kick in the teeth to local tradespeople. It felt, I mustn't use that language here, but it felt like, please don't come back again, sir. Because tradespeople are used to turning up when they want to, and maybe they could learn a lot if we focused on them and taught them about the booking system and how easy it is to use, probably particularly at 4:45 at night or just before the dump closes. But also maybe we as a committee should understand more about what's happened to our finances and to charges, so we really understand, has this significant reduction, I think, from trade customers actually benefited the council financially, or has it actually harmed the council financially? Given the marginal costs of some of this, certainly in terms of the support services, the marginal costs are potentially quite small.
I think Kate will be probably the best person to answer this. I know some of the answers to the questions you've raised, but having used it in a commercial way as well. So, Kate.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important to remember that they're household waste recycling centres in the first instance, and the trade waste service was set up as an auxiliary service, a bit of an extra to support businesses that had small amounts of ad hoc waste. So the initial setup was thinking of accountants that work from home or a hairdresser with the odd bag of waste that they couldn't organise a regular collection for because that didn't offer value for money. So it was to stop that trade waste going in household waste collections at home. Now, over time, that service became so popular and perhaps the prices didn't reflect the value of the waste that was being brought to the sites, and a man with a van, person with a van, effectively was coming and filling up our containers, and we weren't able to cope with the volumes of waste we were coming from householders on top of that trade waste. And we were potentially, as Councillor Gould alluded to, getting excess waste for the amount that was being paid for. And that was partly through how the pricing structure was set up. So the prices are there to reflect the cost to the service of disposing of that trade waste. And if you are somebody with a large amount of waste, regular waste, we're not the best value service for you. You're much better to go directly to the private sector or to a disposal point rather than that double handling through our waste services and then onward transport to elsewhere. So we can't undercut the private sector. It's important that we charge at the prices that it costs the council to deliver them. And that does mean that some of those businesses that were using our service, sometimes to the detriment of the service itself and the customers, have had to find other options for that waste. But we do provide something for those who still wish to use us, and we welcome trade customers who have booked and identify themselves correctly as such.
Thank you, Kate. I think it was Councillor Henson had the next question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agreed with exactly what you say there, Kate. Obviously, this was designed as originally household. We allow a certain amount of trade. If you're a builder or you've got large amounts of waste like that, it should go to professional services such as skip hire, things like that. The most common form of fly tipping doesn't come from builders. It comes from people that are out there to make money in a way of illegal dumping. Many people go around in vans, turn around and say, we'll take your waste away, take the money. They're not going to go and take it to the dump. They're just going to go and put it in some farmer's field. That is very common. It's now gone exponential throughout the country. It's been highlighted throughout the country. Council does its best to curb it and to stop it, but unfortunately you end up forming the brunt of the cost. where does the prosecution come in? How high is the prosecutions coming against these people that are professionally fly tipping?
Thank you. Two more questions and we'll wrap it up. Councillor Colwell, you next, and then followed by... Oh, sorry, Kate, apologies.
So I think there was a couple of questions in there. So the challenge, you're right, is that the traders are taking that waste away, and as customers we can play a role if we are generating waste by asking where they're taking that waste. If it's too good to be true, the price, we shouldn't be using it, and asking them for the correct paperwork and documentation to ensure that's being disposed of correctly, so that there is an element of responsibility for the person creating the waste. The enforcement is largely through our district councils, and they do a very good job with it's a difficult challenge to try and catch fly tippers. And the levels of prosecution are set a little bit more nationally, but there's fixed penalty options that district councils can apply.
Right, three more questions. Councillor Colwell, you were first, Councillor Ludson second, and then Councillor Webber last.
Thank you, Chair. I have a mini question first before my main question for Kate, if that's okay, Chair. And that's a really quick question. It's at 3.3.5. There's lots of different percentages given, but the opening paragraph there, while many customers stated they preferred to be able to visit without a booking. So is there a percentage that exists? Why is that percentage not on there, and is it not favourable to the council? Well,
thank you. That satisfaction survey was from 2025, and I can't recall the exact figures, but that's something I can have a look at. And I think it's fair to acknowledge that lots of people would like to just turn up without a booking, but we also acknowledge it makes a big service difference that they book.
Thank you, Chair. My main question is in relation to Appendix 1, Section 2. Now, this refers to an annual review, re-incineration for this council committee to be discussed. And obviously this council has had a rather turbulent relationship with regards to the issue of incineration. And obviously, as we have a new administration here, I was hoping to seek reassurance today from those present that this council still opposes new incineration being built in this county. Thank you.
Okay, would you like to answer that? Or...
I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the administration. I can tell you that we take our waste currently to the facilities that I've outlined within the paper, and that we're continuing to do that. We've got contracts in place for the next 2 years.
Sorry, that was aimed at the cabinet member, but...
All right. Tom or Pat can answer the question. Well, probably Pat.
Chairman, we haven't actually made any decisions on that at all. I think the biggest incinerator to us is in Wisbech now. So yeah, but we've made no decisions on that issue whatsoever yet.
Can I have a follow-up? Because that's obviously, this is a very sensitive issue, and this council has had to change course, and it's cost it millions of pounds because it didn't listen to the wishes of its residents. So I hope that answer can be provided very quickly. Thank you.
Probably Alex, I know, apologies to the gentleman, Alex would probably like to ask something to do with this as well, because I know that's her thing. Councillor Kemp.
Well, yes, those 20 waste principles were agreed in 2014 after an enormous debacle, and it cost us 34 million to come out of the contract which the council's cabinet had very carelessly signed without realising what it was signing and without realising the wishes of the people of King's Lynn and of Southland in particular. And in no way, shape or form do we want any kind of repetition of that. So I think really there should be a resounding no to reassessing that kind of policy. And I would look to the administration to make that kind of statement very, very quickly indeed.
Councillor Dickerson, would you like to answer Councillor Kemp?
Yeah, I think just to clarify, we've only been in administration a few weeks. We haven't looked at very much. We've got so much to look at. That hasn't even come on the radar. So I think, you know, we have to clarify. It's not in, even, we're not even looking at it. So I will just clarify that. It's not something we're looking at, you know. But we will look at everything. You know, we have to look at every single option, and we'd be foolish not to. But it's not on our radar. Okay, so please let me emphasise that. Okay?
I think Graham would like to add something to that as well.
Yeah, if I can please, Chair. Thank you very much. I'm sure the committee's all aware we're obviously going through local government reorganisation at this moment as well. So Norfolk County Council, as Norfolk County Council, will potentially not exist after April 2028. The whole incinerator debate, if there was a decision, which I'm not saying there would be, that would take years. So that's well beyond the life of Norfolk County Council as per the government's current LGR timescales. Hope that helps committee.
The reason I was
Councillor
asking,
Follow, yeah.
Chair, if that's okay, is because obviously this administration have indicated they're going to be challenging local government reform. So it is an important question that needs to be asked, and I look forward to the answer being more reassuring from Cabinet. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. I think we've got two more questions, and then that is it. We're going to wrap it up. So, Councillor Ludson, you were first, and then Councillor Webber afterwards.
Yeah, I'd just like to start by congratulating Kate and Waste Management for doing the electrical waste. That's amazing. And that sounded like it was really hard to get done, and you did a tremendous amount of work, so thank you. There still is the unresolved issue of textile waste, though. And I noticed in the paper you said you are lobbying to include textile waste in EPR. So it sounds like you got good support from Cabinet to resolve this electrical waste issue. Can there be similar support from Cabinet to try and include textile waste in EPR, which is the enhanced producer responsibility? We get some money from government, from the producers for doing it. And can I ask a little follow-up question to Kate? How are we doing that lobbying process? Is it part of, I know we're part of an assessment period at the minute from 2026 to 2028 for ETS. Can we feed back through that assessment given the increased strain on incinerator costs that's going to cause?
Thank you for the question. So we are making some headway with the textiles. The priority has been with the electricals in the first instance, but we are going out for tenders on the textiles, and hopefully we'll be able to get a contractor in place as soon as possible. The waste that we collect at recycling centres is challenging in terms of the type of textiles that we receive, which is often a little bit dirty and difficult to reuse. So hopefully that's a bit of reassurance from that point of view. Yes, we do agree that this should be a producer responsibility because there's a cost to councils for this sort of waste going through, and that can be quite effective in dealing with that. So lobbying comes through our national network, so we often are part of sort of waste disposal authority networks where we link in with DEFRA. We also consider letters to the Minister if it's something that our administration wants to push forward as well. So we'll continue to investigate that.
We're just going to finish with Councillor Webber. But I'll have to be quick.
So I'd just like to ask, given that there's 8.4 million of our funding comes from EPR, how can Cabinet support you in that lobbying process? And can they commit to supporting you in that lobbying process, please?
I think the support is just a case of allowing officers to continue working through the networks that we have, and in terms of that we're seeing that through our administration, so I'm satisfied that that's the sort of approach that is supported.
And finally, Councillor Webber. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a question about the films and flexibles collections. It was very disappointing, but entirely predictable, to read that so many district, town, city councils have missed the April deadline for the collection of food and waste. The only good news I saw in that section of the paper was that South Norfolk Council doesn't seem to be the worst in Norfolk. But that's small comfort. My question's around the films and flexibles trial and the rollout of that. The trial seems to have been pretty successful, but maybe you'd like to talk more about it. Is there a hard date for second-tier councils to introduce films and flexibles collections? And in your opinion, are they all rather better placed to do this than they were for food waste collection?
I think introducing new collections nationally at one time is challenging, and I think that's what the local councils saw when trying to purchase infrastructure to do that, and there's a national demand for it, so I think that's been part of the delay. Films and Flexibles is due in April 2027. That doesn't require that same level of infrastructure, so it doesn't require new vehicles and containers for everybody if it's delivered in the way the trial was, which was through survival bags. That does require some investment in the back office, which is the sorting facility. So the district councils are working towards that and working towards a position, and we work together as Norfolk Waste Partnership, and there'll be an update to all members through our meetings on that coming shortly.
Thank you. I'm sorry, did you actually give me a date there or not?
April 2027, Films and Flexibles.
Thank you, perfect. Right, moving to basically the Appendix 1 on page 75. Can we recommend this report and move forward with that with a show of hands or a nod?
Agreed.
Yes, agreed. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to point 10, Norfolk Strategic Infrastructure Delivery Plan 2025. Chris, would you like to introduce this report?
Happy to do that, Chair. So the Norfolk Strategic Infrastructure Delivery Plan, easy to say, is a shared plan that aims to bring together Norfolk's key strategic infrastructure priorities in one place. We all know that housing is planned, growth is planned, but it's really important that we have an understanding and a clear plan for the infrastructure that's needed to support that. The infrastructure is a kind of wide range of pieces of things that need to be brought across. The plan focuses on high-level strategic projects, so it doesn't include everything that will be done at a district or parish level. Focuses largely on transport, utilities and regeneration schemes. And it identifies the projects that we need to support delivery of growth, their current position, progress made, and the next stages required. Projects are grouped between those led by local authorities and those expected to be delivered by external organisations. As I say, it's a partnership document, so it's developed with our district colleagues plus other stakeholders. And the 2025 document, which you have, if you've clicked on the link you have in front of you, is developed jointly by officers from the County Council, districts, and been through a range of cross local authority working groups, including Norfolk Chief Execs Group and the Norfolk Leaders Group prior to it being published. The structure of the document, just to explain, so this year the document is slightly more interactive. That has posed some challenges in reading it, as opposed to it just being a straightforward PDF document. So it's structured around an executive summary, as you'd expect. A strategic context section is the next section. This is important because infrastructure covers a multitude of areas, from utilities to health, broadband and roads. And these are funded through a multitude of sources, and the context sets out those. And as well, the context piece also illustrates where growth is planned. The document then focuses more detail on the 24 local authority-led projects, which are directly designed to support planned homes and jobs. To be included in this particular part of the document, there are three criteria attached to it. Firstly, they need to be supporting the delivery of significant housing growth. They also need to be identified in plans or programmes. And the third area is that they need really to have a committed route to delivery. So how are we going to deliver this infrastructure? There's a second section then with another interactive map on schemes delivered by other partners. So that would include things like the A47 improvements. And then a short up-and-coming section for things that are kind of in the pipeline. It's worth saying that the document itself sort of sits and meets halfway at something called the National Infrastructure Pipeline. So this is something UK government produces, which has the complete list, although no list is complete, it's important to stress, of nationally significant projects. Then they break that down by region, and then in a way our list comes, slots in underneath that. So the NSIDP is reviewed and updated annually to reflect project progress, emerging priorities and changes in policy context. And the document also captures a list of projects delivered as well. Early work started on the next iteration with the aim of completing it by the autumn and publishing it by the end of 2026. So committee's thoughts are welcome on this, because you're examining a piece of a document at the start of the process rather than at the end. So your thoughts, your contributions really are valuable in terms of shaping the next iteration of the document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll take some questions from the floor. I think Rob Colwell, Councillor Colwell, you were first.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted just to make a few observations and then make a few requests at the end, if that's okay. I'm just pleased to see that, and for the purposes of the new members present, the A17 pullover junction, so this is a really important entranceway to Norfolk, if you like, and it's currently a bottleneck. I'm pleased to see that it's remaining within the Norfolk Strategic Infrastructure Delivery Plan. It's had some difficulties in its life, but I would like to express my wish that this is prioritised and looked at, because at the moment it's holding back West Norfolk, and with the adjacent A10 West Winch Housing Access Road and the huge number of new homes, which I think the report references 1,600, but I was led to believe it's actually 4,000. So I think there might be a discrepancy there. I don't know if an officer wants to comment on that. But in relation to the up-and-coming projects, listed at the bottom, I also wanted just to stress the importance of that A149 Kings Lynn bypass. So at the moment, during the summer, Kings Lynn grinds to a halt. People cannot get out because of the number of cars and vehicle movements on that A149 going north and south. So I understand a feasibility study has been or is about to be undertaken in relation to that. I hope that the results of that show how what is possible, what is available, and that A149 Kings Lynn bypass gets pushed up, not just from the up and comings, but is an actual project that is required in Norfolk. And the same goes really for the A10 Setchi, the south of West Winch. So at the moment, as far as we're concerned in West Norfolk, we've only done half a job. The actual A10, it needs proper consideration south down towards Ely, where they are working on this very thing. What's missing? We've been asked to look at what is missing. Well, to me, there would seem to be two glaring West Norfolk. Yeah, Chair is saying the money, but we have to have inspiration. We have to listen. I'm a member of Kings Lynn West Norfolk Borough Council as well, and I'm on the Regeneration and Development Committee there. And there are two key things that come up time and time again, and that is the South Lynn railway station. As far as we're concerned in West Norfolk, we have huge amounts of home building. We're talking about our connections to Cambridge. This, to many people and residents, is a priority, and I would hope that that finds its way into the up and coming section. And then finally, Chair, the Kings Lynn ferry. Now, at the moment, it's requiring an awful lot of consideration and help. And I hope that this council continues in its commitment to ensuring that that Kings Lynn ferry is secured for the future. It could be so much more for Kings Lynn. The prospects of taking cars away from Kings Lynn, using that Kings Lynn ferry, it's a strategic infrastructure item that must be delivered in the future. So, thank you, and I hope that those two recommendations can find their way onto the final report, which we're told is going to be in the autumn. Thank you.
Chris, I've just been enlightened. I didn't even know there was a ferry in Kingsley. so thank you. Chris, do you want to come?
Yeah, happy to respond. So always rely on members from this committee for eagle eyes to spot any literals and typing mistakes in there. So I can see 4,000 homes next to Wesley to the A10 road. So if there may be somewhere in the document where the number's not right. So it's a document that we will continually update as the good news about infrastructure is that sometimes we get it funded, sometimes it gets delivered, and there will be, because this is an iteration of the previous year and so on, so there will be occasions where things haven't been transposed across. So plenty of eyes on that is good. And I would say on the A17 pullover, it remains in the list of priority. You will be aware, of course, of government reducing its national programme, and unless we were able to put several £1 million on the nose for them, then it was removed from their list. But we're continuing to progress that. On the South Lynn Railway Station, I don't know, Chair, how much you want me to go into individual projects as we go through. On South Lynn Railway Station, it's a really interesting one. I'm very happy to have an offline discussion, and certainly I've been engaged with Councillor Kemp about where you put a station that doesn't draw traffic away from, well, where is the right location? Because if there was a really easy location or a really, we would absolutely be promoting it. So the principle's absolutely right. There are complexities with increasing the journey time of the Kings Lynn line if you add another stop, and the cost of delivering it, and how many additional passengers it would get. So we're absolutely been looking and working. We'll continue to work on the kind of merits and dismerits of that. And finally, on Kings Lynn Ferry, we're considering the request from the Borough Council.
I believe that Councillor Ludson, were you next? No. Sorry, Councillor Kemp. I knew there's a hand somewhere over there.
Yes, all those projects for Kings Lynn are very important. It was Transport East that said Kings Lynn is one of the 6 most congested places in the east of England, and so it remains. And with the 4,000 houses in Westwinch and 2,000 more in the town and a lot more outside, it's going to get worse. We don't have the roads for it, so we need to improve the strategic transportation network, and the A47 and the A17 flyover need to be a priority, albeit that the government's criteria leave a lot to be desired, and that we need to push the fact that it's a safety issue. It's an accident black spot, but it can't really deliver thousands of new homes, and it seems that the government doesn't want to put the money up unless they can actually see lots and lots of new housing. This is different. This is about proper movement, unimpeded flow in the corridor of movement. You've got the A10 in Setchi there, which is very important, as well as the Westwinch bypass, and the ferry needs to be in the plan. It's in. I've noticed that it's quite a challenge for people not from West Norfolk to understand the importance of the ferry, that instead of going round an interminable road network, you can actually get from one side of the river to the other in 3 minutes. Even the bus gets snarled up in traffic and doesn't arrive. So although we need to improve the bus service as well, the ferry is something separate, and it's been there for 800 years. It stood the test of time. But for a small contribution from the County Council now, its future could be at risk. So this is something which everybody needs to be speeded up and prioritised, because the ask is there on the table now for some match funding, and this is where the county could make a great deal of difference. So I'd like to ask again, can the ferry, the West Lynn Kings Lynn ferry, be put in the infrastructure plan, please?
So the reason it's not in is because it was in a state of reasonable repair when the plan was put together, and secondly, the Borough Council didn't put it forward. So they are the they are the responsible body for the ferry. So we will obviously await to hear from the Borough Council if they wish to see it added into the list, as they are, as I say, responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the ferry.
I would like to say that the state of play is it's not known how long the emergency repairs last year will last, and that there are structural problems. So this is a matter of urgency. It's a fluctuating state, and we can't get these repairs done, the infrastructure replaced early enough.
That's noted, thank you. Councillor Clancy, I believe, was next.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking through this plan. I'm afraid to say I've seen these kind of plans for a lot of years. And there is a fundamental flaw emerging in these plans, that the reality of it is the infrastructure isn't keeping track and keeping pace with housing. I can only refer to the Greater Norwich Development Partnership. When the Greater Norwich Development Partnership was formed between the County Council, Broughton District Council, South Norfolk District Council, as it was, and Chris will remember the LEP in those days, and the Broads Authority, it started with good intent, and the good intent was infrastructure, jobs, housing. Now there's a big problem, and I would like this please to be minuted, because it is really important. What we're now getting across, I can't speak for any other areas, but I can speak, say, for the Greater Norwich area, we are getting vast levels of housing, volumes of housing, lots of applications coming forward for thousands of houses, but the infrastructure and the jobs are not keeping pace. And this is a problem. This is not just an economic problem, it's a social problem, and it's an environmental problem. I think there's a failure in process, and it potentially stems from national government, and it lands with local government. That the reality of it is, the theory is that the infrastructure, and nobody's even talking about the jobs now, the infrastructure comes later. Well, the reality of it is, the infrastructure isn't coming later. And this is becoming a major problem. There's a problem with water. There's problems with fresh and foul water. There's problems with, obviously, road connectivity. There's problems with healthcare facilities. And unless we get to grips with these and take a proper, joined-up approach, and that these matters are planning matters, I'm told by planning officers on a lot of occasions, oh no, these are not planning matters. Well, these are matters which affect people. They affect residents. They affect our way of life. And I would like it recorded that we must revisit this. We must revisit it and improve on our performance of delivering infrastructure, and we do need correlation with jobs. This has all gone on the back burner. We are now complying with government directives, housing. And as an individual, I'm a great believer in housing. We need to find homes at all levels, whether it be social rented, whether it be shared equity, market, stately homes, whatever. We need the housing, but we must not keep continually delivering large-scale housing without due care for infrastructure, because, Chairman, we're falling behind. Jobs and infrastructure, we're falling behind. And I want to highlight this to this committee, and I hope you'll take due care. I'm a guest here today, but you might be seeing a little more of me. I think we must look at this. We've got lots and lots of forums going on, lots and lots of people talking about it, but there's massive slippage, Chairman.
Yeah, I think many will agree with your sentiments, but yeah, is there any direct question you want to ask anybody, or just...
Deliver the infrastructure, Chairman.
Yeah, okay. That's one for you guys. I think there was one more question, I believe. Two more questions. So, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to ask you about the Westbridge bypass. I suggested, but I don't know this in time, about a park and ride whilst we had all the equipment there for that, whether it was going to be looked into at all, which would help alleviate traffic to the hospital going into Kings Lynn, with it, like I say, another major town that's got no no facility for that at all? Thank you.
In terms of the Westwood scheme, we've recently got planning permission for the scheme, so because of the time it takes to develop these major infrastructure schemes, it would cause a delay to the scheme to now incorporate a park and ride as part of it. But I think it's fair to say that that option and other options are all part of the wider sort of Kings Lynn strategy going forwards. And there's been an aspiration for some sort of park and ride facility around there in that area for a number of years, but they are expensive items, so it will depend on future levels of government funding as well. But unfortunately, we can't do it as part of the scheme as proposed to prevent any delays. But yeah, it is a well-known challenge around there, and there's another document which is not here today, but again has been brought to one of these meetings previously, the Kings Lynn transport strategy side of things. And within that, I can't remember the exact details, but there's certainly proposals such as that within that document.
And if I could, again, on specifically on Kings Lynn, the West Winch programme, so we will let you and circulate the copy of the Kings Lynn transport strategy, because that puts kind of all of this in a bit of context. It explains really about Councillor Kemp's, in fact, Councillor Colwell's comment about rail, also about sort of circulation in the hospital, those kind of things. It's worth as well saying, as part of the West Winch scheme, yes, it is a road, but it will also lead to improved bus services and indeed improved walking and cycling routes as well, so bringing a full solution. And it's also worth saying, as part of the Kings Lynn Neighbourhood Board, it's not a park and ride per se, but there is an active travel hub being developed on the Nauru site, which effectively acts in the same way. That you'll be able to leave your car there, and catch the bus from Nauru. So we are thinking about those. Again, there have been a number of improvements to the bus network through the BSIP as well, but certainly very happy to talk you through with my team the kind of what are the kind of aspirations, and indeed your feedback, thoughts, and so on would be on that specific document would be welcome.
Happy with that, Councillor Williams? If so, we'll move on to Councillor Jim Webber. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this report with us. And I would like to say, before I get any further, for reasons that will become obvious, but I absolutely recognise the potential that exists at Durham Marketplace and how good that could be, given an appropriate level of investment. It could be a real sort of jewel in the crown of that part of Norfolk. And you'll understand why I've mentioned that now when I move on. I think comments were invited about this report, and you've already acknowledged that the sort of online format has its challenges. And I would say for the level of information in there, which is actually pretty limited in general, it doesn't justify moving online. A paper report would be much more functional. I also just wonder what the purpose of the report really is. It felt like a bit like a shopping catalogue, lots of things in there, some of which perhaps are going off the shelf quite quickly, others which look destined to stay on the shelf for many years, because it's not clear where the funding is going to come from. So although we say these projects have got a committed route to delivery, not in my eyes they haven't. I'd also suggest that we include in it, if you like, projects that are being delivered, maybe have been delivered but haven't been built out yet. So I'm just going to use a trivial example. Great that we have a Long Stratton bypass in there, particularly if you live in Long Stratton. But really, for that to be successful, we need the housing to come as well, because that's how we justify the investment. So to report on how these things are going and where they're going according to plan, I think is very relevant. And in fact, I do wonder if some of these projects need some kind of colour coding as to whether they're, whether they're live and active or whether they're effectively dead and dormant. it didn't read as if the report was particularly up to date in certain places. I think I spotted a couple of references to historic dates which were worded as if in the future. So little things like that meant it didn't necessarily represent the best of Norfolk. I also wonder if some of those national priorities ought to be included as well to give the whole thing more context, because it did feel a bit like a curate's egg. And I also wonder if all of the projects are strictly strategic. And that's where I'm going to mention Dereham Marketplace. Great for Dereham, but really strategic for Norfolk, I'm not convinced. The other thing I would mention is that where would members find out more information about some of these projects? And I was quite intrigued, just in areas that I know quite well. There was one project that I don't think I'd heard about before, which surprised me. And there was another project, which was the A140 north of Long Stratton, which, based on the discussions I've seen around that, might prove to be rather less exciting than the title. So those are just a few comments on the content of the report.
I think I know what you're talking about. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that, Chris?
Thank you for the feedback. This is kind of precisely the purpose of this committee. So in terms of the format, I'm not content that the new format has worked. Okay, so I think we should do a sort of. It's handy, it's helpful in that you can look at where there's a number of projects, where they are and so on, so geographically based. I think that's helpful, but maybe we'll revert to a more conventional piece. In terms of how it's structured, we've, over the years, a number of different ways of structuring it, and I think we probably need to take a step back and get it into a more logical sequence. In terms of what is strategic, what is not strategic, well, one of the challenges, opportunities, one of the realities of partnership working is what we as a county might regard as strategic. One of our district colleagues may not regard, things we may not regard as strategic, they absolutely think are. So it's a kind of a bit of a compromise perhaps on that. So, for example, technically, strictly speaking, the ferry crossing wouldn't meet that criteria, but we've obviously heard voices in the chamber today that they would like that included. So there's a bit of compromise and so on what we include. But your most important question is the purpose. Why have we produced it? It is something we produce on a voluntary basis. It doesn't have to be produced. There is no requirement. But I think Councillor Clancy made some excellent points about housing, where's the infrastructure? The purpose of the document is to try and pull together all of the pieces of infrastructure that we really need to see delivered over a period of time, some things quickly, some things over a longer period of time, in order for that housing growth to be supported. It's a document we can use to advocate to government particular schemes where we might want more money. It's a document where, as districts and county, we can collaborate and work together on what are those local priorities. So Dereham Marketplace is a good example because that is proposed by Breckland, but much of it is on the highway, therefore it's a highway scheme. So we need as partners to come together and agree on that. So there are a number of reasons for doing it. But I do accept that in terms of formatting and so on, we can make modifications, improvements, and so on with it.
Thank you, Chris. I think, Rob, you were next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So my final question on this item is in relation to the Just Dual It campaign, so the A47. So the previous administration, Councillor Plant, was a firm believer in that, and I appreciate that elements of that are listed in here, for example, the A47 Tilney to East Winch dualling. But my question is, why are we not being more bold in this strategic infrastructure delivery plan about our aspirations of dualling the whole A47 to connect the main areas of Norfolk, a key artery, a road which holds Norfolk back at the moment. Yes, there's amazing things happening. We finally get the infrastructure on the outskirts of Norwich towards Dereham. We can all see that with our own eyes, but the bigger picture, why is that not on here? And why is it not even on the up-and-coming projects? Thanks.
Well, the short answer is there are no, so it's an aspiration. Dualling is an aspiration. There are no, in terms of the schemes you're referring to, they don't exist as schemes. So there are, so the purpose of the plan, and there's no reason why it couldn't be included in the up and coming or aspirations and so on, and perhaps that's something we would do. But a list of schemes needs to be a scheme rather than just an idea.
I think, Chair, if I may, it's important. If central government are looking at this document, they need to hear what Norfolk needs to grow our economy, to grow jobs, and to make us all more prosperous. Thanks.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you. I think Rob... No, you've asked your question. Sorry. I think that pretty much wraps it up, does it? Anyone else? Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to talk about the Norwich-Cambridge technology corridor, and that really is, or should be, a strategic development opportunity for the whole county, and it would be good to see much greater focus on that. And I'm going to give this is a specific, but also more generally, we ought to have something in there about the projects that we want to see, that we expect to see, if we're going to actually fulfil our strategy. Because linking into what other speakers have said, it's not really clear they're all in place yet. And other things, although this might be relatively small, it worries me. I think the council is the biggest shareholder effectively in Hethel Innovation Centre. For years, there's been an almost complete planning application for, I think, what's called the Phase 4 development, which would be another building behind the Innovation Centre, which would be for larger firms. In probably the last 18, 24 months, I think 2 firms have outgrown the Innovation Centre and have moved to other parts of the country because there was nowhere for them to move within Norfolk. Things like growing the infrastructure that enables our businesses to live and grow in this environment, in this area, is critically important to us. And that links into the next point, which is, I think, is it called the Norfolk Growth Board? They recently produced a paper, and they talked about 99.99% of businesses being micro-businesses in Norfolk. And that certainly equates to what I find when I go around the doorsteps. Many, many people are working from home. What those people desperately need is better fibre, better broadband. If this is a strategic plan, we should actually be talking about that because it's very important. And we should also, this is perhaps a different board, but we should also be thinking of what can we do to encourage those micro businesses to grow, to invest in people, in premises, to move on to the next stage of development. There's an awful lot of people in Norfolk who've got the talent and the capability to run bigger businesses, but we need to do more to encourage them to do so. Thank you.
I was going to just have a quick word. I think the new roundabout at Hethel might have something to do with growth. So, but over to you, Chris.
I mean, a couple of points really. So, or 3 points. So, in terms of the tech corridor, that remains a priority. Again, where there are specific schemes, they would be included that meet the criteria. They'll be included in this document. In terms of Hethel specifically, that is indeed why the authority is working with South Norfolk on the new infrastructure to open up the site, partly to support Phase 4, which and indeed to support Lotus's Hethel Performance Hub, which was High Performance Hub, which was launched with the government minister recently, and Obviously, Wyndham is a significant growth location. To go back to Councillor Clancy's earlier point about we need jobs as well as housing, that's behind that particular intention. In terms of digital connectivity, so digital connectivity is covered in the strategic context. So there is reference to Project Gigabit, the Better Broadband for Norfolk plan, and obviously I'm responsible for economic development skills as well. So I'm clearly think it's an important priority, Councillor Webber. So that where that is covered, our support for businesses is in our local growth plan. So that is referred to in the document. There's no sense in adding that piece, but it should be seen as sitting alongside the infrastructure plan. So I think towards the start of the strategic context, we specifically refer to the Norfolk Local Growth Plan on page 4, which, as you're quite rightly, has been developed by the Norfolk Business Board. And in terms of support for SMEs, we absolutely do run a whole suite of programmes to support SMEs through our Growth Hub. We supported about 4,000 SMEs last year. We'll aim to support about 4,000 Norfolk businesses again this year, which I think is just important to say as part of the holistic piece, that growth is around infrastructure, about skills, but also about support for our businesses, particularly small businesses.
Okay, thank you. So I think, again, we'll wrap this bit up. And the recommendations in the report, can I just get everybody's agreement going forward that... Sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing. Yeah, are there any further recommendations that anyone wishes to put forward? If not, we will agree that and move forward. No. Okay, so... A nod or a show of hands would be good.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So... Moving on to the final point on the agenda, and it's the 11th item, Forward Working Programme, and that's for Tristan to introduce, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So committee members will be aware that obviously this being the first meeting for many, I believe Councillor Colwell's the one returning member for this committee, that the work programme is an inherited work programme and that you as members may want to put your own stamp on it. You may want to suggest items. There might be items on there that you feel you don't need. So with committee's permission, I would ask us to go next door, where you'll be pleased to know it's cooler and there are biscuits, and we can discuss the work programme in a bit more detail. If that works for members, we can scope items out and ensure that you've got a work programme that meets your needs for the next few meetings of this committee. If committee members want to raise items now as well for public record, they're very welcome to do that. But just to say that their option is to go next door with indeed the directors who are here, and we can scope those items out and ensure you're getting the reports you need. Thanks. Over to you, Chair.
In essence, just got some questions. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm very happy to continue the discussions outside of the room. I do want to, however, mention on the public record how I feel the need for one of the pipeline items, which is the scrutiny of Anglian Water Services, should find its way to a future meeting as soon as possible. There are concerns raised in the media with regards to underspend of allocated funds for repairs and infrastructure. We need to have this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sorry.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's noted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Noted.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's got consensus. Councillor Kemp?
Jim Webber, yes. Councillor Webber.
Thank you. Just for this meeting again, the local member funding that we've talked about, the withdrawal of that earlier, at the, I think it was the last, was it cabinet meeting? Councillor Vick said we would review the performance and whether the revised funding for potholes had delivered against its objectives, and would reconsider whether the local member fund should be reintroduced for 27-28. So I would like on public record to suggest that we add that to the agenda for very early in the next calendar year within this financial year.
I would second that.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp.
It's noted. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you.
Councillor Camp, I think.
Oh, sorry.
I would like to add to the list of broadband signals and mobile signals, because the lack of them around various parts of the county is an economic barrier. And it's also leading to unfair sanctions for people at work from the DWP, because they have to phone in every so often, and if their signals don't work, they get their benefits cut off.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Noted for the record, and we can discuss that shortly. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any suggestions? If not, we'll see you next door. And over to you, Chair.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for everyone's input today. It's been good. It's my first time in the chair, so thank you for being gentle on me. Yeah, the next infrastructure meeting and development committee meeting will be on the 10th of September. And I formally end the meeting. Thank you.